Week 0 of college football is in the books. I love that they call it week 0. It's the first week, kind of a pre-week, as a few teams played over the weekend. And I want to talk today and in this video about what I saw from Notre Dame. There were two high-profile teams that played this week. USC and Notre Dame happens to be great rivals as well. And both had fairly large questions coming into this season. High-profile teams, somewhat highly ranked teams. Notre Dame, 13, 14, mid-teens, depending on what poll you look at. USC in the top 10 in a lot of rankings. Both teams had some major questions, and we're going to talk about Notre Dame today. We'll talk about USC tomorrow and how I think they answered those questions. Some in good ways, some in bad ways. So to start it off with Notre Dame, it was the showdown of the week on DraftKings. We made a DraftKings lineup last week. Unfortunately, we're just outside the money on those lineups, and I thought we'd kick today's video off by taking a look at that. So as we look at DraftKings here, just a reminder, we had Hartman, Estime, Fofana, Thomas, Merriweather, and Stays. And this is what ended up beating us, at least for the money, right? Minimum place, 294th place. This is the person who got 294th. Got knocked out by about 5 points, so very few points. And really what it came down to, it's interesting, Merriweather in both of our lineups getting 0. It really came down to Stays not getting points. And really, Hartman getting a few extra, and really Estime getting a few extra for them, right? There were some junk time runs there as they were running out the clock at the end of the game. Estime probably gets 2 or 3 more points, which, when you calculate that in with the captain bonus for them, that's really where we lost it. Now, if Hartman plays another drive, gets another score, absolutely looking like we're in the money. The other thing is, if we could just get a single reception from Stays, that probably gets us in the money. So disappointed with Stays. He was kind of my sleeper pick here. I thought he was going to get some touches. Really, I was surprised neither tight end got touches, although I saw them out there a lot. So kind of disappointed in that regard that both tight ends were in a lot. They just didn't get targeted. So I think this is a case of Sam Hartman maybe targeting the receivers and the running backs more. Would have been nice. I mean, a Tyree pick here at 5,400 instead of Merriweather, that would have got us in the money. So we flip-flopped on that. We had Tyree at one point. A little disappointed in that. If we take a review of us against the person who actually won, you can see we got a lot of these picks right. We had Hartman as the captain. We had Estime, right? We had Thomas. We just did not have Greathouse was the big key miss. 21 points, had 2 receiving touchdowns on 3 receptions for 68 yards. Greathouse was the key. If Greathouse gets picked by us instead of Tobias Merriweather, we're in first place. Interesting that the number 1 lineup got 0 points from Merriweather. So definitely the best possible lineup was not played this week. Very excited for next week. We're going to try and bounce back. Maybe we'll go a little safer and not go quite so deep with a Stays pick next time. Obviously, it'll be different teams in the showdown of the week, but we're excited for that. Let's talk Notre Dame, though, and what I saw from them. Coming into this season, everybody was talking about a couple of things. The main thing, though, was Hartman. Can Hartman be the quarterback that Notre Dame has been needing and wanting for years now? I was talking with my father. We're both huge Notre Dame fans. And really, it's been all the way back since like Jimmy Clausen and Brady Quinn that Notre Dame has a star, a true star quarterback that is able to throw the ball downfield, read defenses, and push that offense forward. And for the past 10 years, it has been a lot of just trying to get by at quarterback, really subpar play for what is traditionally a powerhouse in the college football world. They've had some success. They have gone to college football playoffs, but even when they've gotten to those playoffs, it's been painfully apparent that their quarterback play is just not up to the standard of other teams. Back in 2012, they just got rolled over by Alabama in that national championship game. Since then, they've made it to the college football playoff, had some respectable games, right? Played Clemson better than anybody played Clemson that year, have had some decent showings, but just never had that playmaker at the quarterback position. So could Hartman deliver? I think he proved in one game it was immediately apparent. The way the Notre Dame offense just picked apart this Navy defense, which gave them fits last year, especially in the second half. Blitzes and the way they come at you on defense, it's very creative and very aggressive. Hartman was consistent and quick with getting the ball out, reading defenses, looking for the open player to beat the blitz. Offensive coordinator was another question. You have this new transfer quarterback coming in. What is this new offensive coordinator as Tommy Rees has moved on to Alabama? Took Tyler Buchner with him, Buchner being the quarterback more recently. Those two are gone. So we have a new offensive coordinator, new quarterback. How are they going to gel? I think they gelled really well. It is Navy's defense, which nobody would argue is elite, but the way they systematically dissected that defense, picked it apart, drove down effortlessly. The only drive they didn't score was on the missed field goal attempt, and they were already up big at that point, right? So, a very good showing from Notre Dame, something that hasn't been seen recently by Notre Dame. Last year, Navy played them really tight. This year, an absolute throttling, and really it felt like Notre Dame truly had command of the game and was playing like a team that is much better than Navy. Last year, they kind of let them stick around, let them get back into the game. They didn't roll over them. This was a absolute beatdown, offensively and defensively. Yes, Navy's going to move the ball a little bit. The triple option is a difficult defense to defend, but one of the biggest question marks with all of the recent graduates from that Notre Dame defensive line, very happy, if you're a Notre Dame fan, to see the defensive line be able to hold up against a complicated and difficult to defend run game from Navy. Now, they're going to be able to overpower them. Yes, that's a different caliber of athlete at Notre Dame than Navy. But Navy is a tough opponent. It's a tough out for anybody that plays them because they are complicated. It's a type of offense you don't see very often. So to see the defense really perform that way, basically hold them to a shutout. They kicked a field goal and kind of junk time after backups were in. But to have a complete game from offense and defense as the opening game of the season in Dublin, Ireland, so you've got a lot of distractions going on, was very impressive to see and good for Marcus Freeman. Coming into his second year as a head coach, again, lots of questions. How's that defensive line going to hold up? You've got a new quarterback. Is he really going to be the quarterback that everybody dreamed of? You've got a new offensive coordinator. How's that going to work? Everything seemed to flow really well. They looked prepared. And they looked dominant. They looked like they never let up. They stayed consistent, played hard, and beat a Navy team that they should beat. And so I would say, start moving them up. Notre Dame is going to be dangerous this year. That offense is better than we thought it was. Sam Hartman is as good as he was projected to be. There doesn't seem to be offensive coordinator problems. The offensive line is something that I think gets talked about every year at Notre Dame, but typically in the last few years, it's been a lot of hype and not a lot of delivering. You know, last year, again, I'm going to reference the Navy game last year. They averaged like barely 3 yards a carry behind a very vaunted offensive line that was supposed to be great. And they could barely run the ball against Navy. This year, close to 7 yards a carry, I believe, maybe even a little more than that, against that offensive line that never looked like it was struggling. So again, another situation where we come in with expectations, and Notre Dame actually met them where they haven't in previous years. So I don't know. I'm pushing Notre Dame up. I am a big Notre Dame fan, so I'm a little biased. But very, very impressed and happy with their production on offense and defense, all facets of the game, all levels. D-line, linebackers, safeties, and corners. Obviously, Navy doesn't throw the ball, so we don't get to see them as much. But really, the safeties and corners are probably the strength of the Notre Dame defense. In Benjamin Morrison and Cam Hart, two very top, highly touted guys there on the corners. And good safety play as well from, a DJ Brown, Xavier Watts is here, Ramon Henderson. They're pretty deep in the back end, which is impressive for a Notre Dame team that maybe in the last few years has struggled at the corner position. So defensive line stepped up, showed that they could play. Corners, safeties didn't even get tested, obviously, against Navy, but to see a defense hold a Navy team where Navy should be able to exploit their biggest weakness, being that their run defense, maybe their defensive line wasn't as strong. Impressive to see them hold Navy to 3 points, and really that 3 points is kind of in junk time at the end of the game. And then the offense be dominant. An offensive line comes in, everybody thinks they're going to be dominant. They're talking about being dominant. They were. Quarterback comes in, everybody's talking about, man, he could be a difference maker for this Notre Dame roster. He is. Bunch of young wide receivers, Chris Tyree moving out of the backfield to the slot. Everyone was productive. It was a big day for Notre Dame fans, and I think you have to put them on the upward trajectory for maybe chasing a college football playoff. That team dominated Navy in a way a top-tier team should dominate Navy. Now, we haven't seen the rest of the league. There's questions all over. We'll talk about USC tomorrow because USC's been that team in the top 10. People talking about had some similar questions about the defense that, maybe Notre Dame did. Obviously had a very highly touted quarterback and a very experienced, highly touted coach. So how did they play? We'll talk about that tomorrow. But thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you like the content, and we will see you tomorrow to talk a little SC football.